These real aviation incidents show how fast a normal flight can become an emergency. Some involve hard landings, others show runway collisions, gear failures, fires, and evacuations. But every case has the same purpose here: to understand what happened and what lesson it leaves behind. January 2nd, 2024, Tokyo Haneda Airport, Japan. Japan Airlines Flight 516 had just landed after a domestic flight from Hokkaido. But on runway 34 right, a Japan Coast Guard aircraft was already stopped on the same runway. Seconds after touchdown, the Airbus A350 hit the Coast Guard Dash 8. Fire broke out almost immediately. The Japan Airlines aircraft kept moving down the runway, with flames and smoke spreading from the lower part of the fuselage. There were 379 people on board. All of them survived and evacuated after the aircraft came to a stop. But on the Coast Guard aircraft, 5 crew members were killed. The captain survived with serious injuries. The final official cause has not been released yet, but investigators have confirmed the key safety issue. The Coast Guard aircraft entered and stopped on the runway while the Japan Airlines flight had been cleared to land. The investigation is focused on runway communication, crew understanding of clearance, and why air traffic control did not notice the aircraft on the runway in time. The lesson is simple but critical. On a busy airport runway, every clearance must be clear, confirmed, and monitored, because one misunderstanding can put 2 aircraft in the same place at the same time. October 8th, 2008, Takamatsu Airport, Japan. A Beechcraft 58 operated by Asahi Air was being used for instrument approach training. The aircraft had departed from Yao Airport, and the crew was practicing touch-and-go landings at Takamatsu. After one normal touchdown, the crew began the takeoff roll for the next circuit. The aircraft was still on the runway, but before it lifted off, the landing gear retracted. The airplane dropped onto its belly. Both propellers struck the runway, and the aircraft slid across the pavement before leaving the runway and stopping in the grass. There were 4 people on board, an instructor and 3 trainees. All of them survived, and no one was injured. There was no fire. The official investigation found no defect in the landing gear system. Investigators concluded that the gear was retracted during the takeoff roll, and that the trainee pilot may have moved the gear handle up by mistake before the aircraft was safely airborne. The lesson from this accident is simple. During touch-and-go training, the cockpit gets busy very fast. Gear movement should never be rushed. The aircraft must be clearly airborne and climbing before the landing gear is selected up. November 10th, 2014, Barnstable Municipal Airport, Hyannis, Massachusetts. A Beech Bonanza was dealing with a landing gear emergency near Cape Cod. The pilot was approaching Nantucket when he heard an unusual noise while trying to lower the nose landing gear. From the tower, the front gear could not be confirmed down, so the pilot was sent to Hyannis, where airport crews and firefighters were already waiting. Before landing, he circled for about 1 hour to burn off fuel and reduce the risk during touchdown. Then he brought the airplane in on runway 15. The Bonanza touched down on its main wheels first, but with the nose gear not properly down, the front of the aircraft settled onto the runway. The airplane came to a stop, and the pilot, who was the only person on board, was not injured. The confirmed emergency was a nose landing gear problem. The available sources do not give an exact mechanical cause, so it should not be blamed on one specific part without stronger evidence. The lesson is about not rushing the landing. When the landing gear does not show safe, The best response is time, communication, and preparation. The pilot used the runway, emergency cruise, and extra fuel burn to turn a serious gear problem into a survivable landing.
South African.
December 11th, 2007. Lusaka International Airport, Zambia. A South African Airways Boeing 737-700 had just arrived from Johannesburg. The landing was already over. The aircraft was moving slowly toward the ramp, where passengers would soon get off. But as the airplane moved toward its parking position, the left wingtip came too close to a parked service truck. The wing struck the truck and pushed it over onto its side. The wing was damaged, but no injuries were reported. This was not an airborne crash. It was a ground collision. And that makes it an important reminder. An aircraft can still be at risk after landing, even at low speed, even close to the gate. No public final report was found that gives one confirmed cause, so the safest wording is this. The accident happened because the aircraft and the truck were not kept safely apart during ramp movement. The exact reason for that separation problem is not confirmed in the available sources. The lesson is about ramp discipline. Wingtip clearance, vehicle position, safety lines, and guidance from ground staff all matter. On the ramp, there is very little room for guessing. A flight is not truly finished until the aircraft is parked, stopped, and secured. April 5th, 2009, North Little Rock Municipal Airport, Arkansas. A Piper Tri-Pacer was starting a personal flight from North Little Rock to Nashville, Arkansas. The runway was dry, the weather was clear, but the wind was the danger. The airplane tried to take off from runway 23 with a strong crosswind. The wind was coming from the side, about 60 degrees from the runway direction. It was reported at 24 knots, with stronger gusts. As the takeoff roll continued, the pilot could not keep the aircraft on the runway centerline. The Tri-Pacer drifted off the runway and entered the grass. Then the nose went down. The airplane flipped over and came to rest upside down. The pilot was the only person on board. He survived without injury. There was no fire. The NTSB report found no mechanical failure in the flight controls. The probable cause was the pilot not correcting enough for the wind during takeoff. The lesson is simple. A strong, gusty crosswind can become dangerous before the airplane even leaves the ground. If the aircraft cannot stay on the centerline, stopping the takeoff early may be the safest choice. Crosswind control has to start from the beginning of the roll, not after the airplane is already drifting away.
Oh crap.
On August 15, 2017, at Lelystad in the Netherlands, a PBY Catalina was returning from a memorial flight with 18 people on board. After a planned water landing and takeoff on a nearby lake, the crew noticed damage near the nose gear doors. They returned to Lelystad Airport and tried to lower the landing gear. The main gear came down, but the nose gear would not extend. Even the backup procedure did not solve the problem. The crew prepared to land without the nose wheel. The aircraft touched down safely, stayed under control, and came to a stop on the runway. All 18 people on board were uninjured. Investigators found that damage to the nose gear door system most likely stopped the nose gear from extending. The exact reason why the door was damaged during the water operation could not be fully confirmed. The lesson is simple. On aircraft that can land on water, a water operation can damage parts needed for a runway landing. After any unusual contact with water, the safest decision is to stop the maneuver, check the aircraft, and prepare for a controlled landing. October 29, 2015, Fort Lauderdale Airport, Florida. Dynamic International Airways Flight 405 was taxiing for takeoff to Caracas, Venezuela. It was a Boeing 767 with 101 people on board. During taxi, fuel started leaking near the left side of the aircraft. A few seconds later, the fuel caught fire. The crew brought the aircraft to a stop and started an emergency evacuation. Everyone survived, but one passenger was seriously injured, and 21 others had minor injuries. The NTSB found that a fuel line connection came apart because a needed safety wire had not been installed during maintenance. The leaking fuel reached hot parts and caught fire. The lesson is simple. Small maintenance steps are not small when fuel and heat are involved. And during an evacuation, passengers must be kept away from any engine that is still running. On May 31st, 2015, two Van's aircraft collided during an air show off the coast of Italy near Alba, Adriatica. They were flying a mirror formation over the sea. One aircraft was above, flying upside down. The second aircraft was below it. During the maneuver, the upper aircraft suddenly dropped out of position. The two airplanes collided in the air. One aircraft lost part of its wing and crashed into the sea. The pilot was killed. The second aircraft was damaged, but it was still partly controllable. Its pilot landed in the water near the beach, and the airplane flipped over in shallow water. He survived with minor injuries. The official investigation found that the likely cause was a sudden medical or physical problem affecting the pilot of the upper aircraft. In simple words, investigators believed he may have become unable to control the airplane in the final seconds before the collision. The lesson is clear. In close formation flying, there is almost no time to recover when one aircraft moves out of position. Pilot condition, spacing, and strict formation discipline all matter. When two aircraft are this close, even a few seconds can decide the outcome.
Dietro la linea! Martina, via! Dietro! Dietro! E quello giù?
Ma si sono presi, che
Sì, l'ho toccato.
On June 22, 2019, an air-spray Lockheed Electra air tanker was landing at Red Deer Regional Airport in Alberta, Canada. The aircraft had a landing gear problem. The crew tried to lower the main landing gear, but it would not lock safely for landing. After several attempts, the crew chose the safest option left. They prepared for a controlled gear-up landing. The aircraft touched down on the runway and slid to a stop. There were 4 people on board. All of them got out safely. No one was injured, and there was no fire. The confirmed emergency was a landing gear problem. The exact mechanical cause has not been publicly confirmed. The lesson is simple. When the gear does not come down, forcing the landing can make things worse. The crew used time, checks, and a prepared runway to keep the situation under control.
Good job, guys. Good job.
A ver, que estoy grabando, por Dios.
On April 3, 2019, a Spanish Air Force C-295 was landing at Santa Celia Airport in Spain. The aircraft was taking part in a military training exercise. There were 10 people on board. On final approach, the aircraft came in low near the start of the runway. It touched down hard. Then it bounced more than once, and the landing gear was damaged. The crew could not stop the aircraft in the runway distance that was left. The plane went off the runway and came to rest on lower ground beyond the airfield. No one was killed. All 10 people on board were injured, but they survived. Investigators pointed to a strong downward wind on final approach as a key factor. The short runway, nearby terrain, and late flare also made the landing harder to recover. The lesson is clear. At a short mountain airfield, the approach has to be stable early. If the height, wind, or runway position does not look right, the safest choice is to go around before the aircraft gets too low.
¿Se ha salido? ¿Se ha salido? ¿Se ha salido?
On June 20th, 2012, ANA Flight 956 was landing at Narita International Airport in Japan. The aircraft was landing in gusty crosswind conditions. There were 193 people on board. The aircraft touched down, bounced, and then hit the runway hard on the nose landing gear. The impact damaged the front of the aircraft. There was no fire. 4 cabin attendants received minor injuries. Investigators found that after the bounce, the captain tried to lower the nose quickly. That made the nose gear hit the runway with high force. Gusty crosswind was also a contributing factor. The lesson is simple. After a bounced landing, forcing the nose down can make the situation worse. If the landing is no longer stable, the safer choice is to go around.